You do need a manual if you have one. If you don't, I brought a couple extra.
All nice and bound. Print mine out.
Yes, see, we're rewarding those who show up unprepared. Is that a good practice? There we go. What's that? Yeah, well, you see, if you depend on my good graces like that, you could be disappointed. Because I don't always have extras, but when I do have...
I we've been friends since the class I was unable to take last time, and I did read it.
Okay, very good. I appreciate that. So today, we're going to be talking about a brutal prospecting source, expired listings. How many of you all have worked expireds before? Okay. Say that again?
Many times.
Many times. Is it part of your business plan now?
It started up again.
Started up again. Okay. So, well, I will appreciate your input as we go through the class today, because I'm going to teach a very specific strategy, but I recognize there are other approaches, and I'd love to hear your experience as we go through that. So, let's go ahead and set the context for the strategy that we're going to be talking about today. So look with me at page 3, where we will cover the course overview. So the purpose of this class is to teach a proactive approach for effectively moving into relationship with people who once indicated a definite need to sell their home. And the key word, as always, will be underlined and bolded. In this case, it's what? Proactive. And we say proactive, that differentiates this source from what kind? Non-active or passive, a passive source, which is just waiting for the business to come to you. And if you've been in the business 50 years and built up a huge backlog of clients and customers, perhaps passive sources will satisfy your financial requirements. The fact that you're in this class today indicates to me that you still have aspirations that go beyond your present experience. So, you're in the right place. If you're willing to take productive action on a daily basis, Expireds has probably made more agents wealthy, launched more careers, gotten more agents to the next level in their careers than any other source of business. Okay? And part of the reason for that is you can be proactive in this source every single day. You don't have to have a current buyer. You don't have to have a current seller. You're not trying to leverage past relationships. You can just get a list, pick up the phone, start dialing, and have a listing conversation tonight. Agents who have figured that out and committed to this have achieved at very high levels. Okay, so it's a wonderful source for proactive people. Here's the expectation. After this class, you will be confident enough to start calling expired sellers. Okay, so that's the whole point of this class, is to expose you to some knowledge and skills, some scripts and dialogues, so that you can go win Real Estate Jeopardy. So that you can talk with other agents in the hall and impress them with your expired strategy knowledge. Somebody say no, that's not why we're here. We're here to take action. The goal of all training is action. So the point is, you're going to be confident enough to go take action. The result, a substantial increase in revenue, and in a moment I'm going to walk you through those numbers. And I know agents right now who are living the numbers that we're going to talk through. Okay? All right, here's the plan. Our source is expired sellers. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with the operational model that we teach, there are 5 prospecting sources from which leads come. Those of you who've been in class, do you know what they are? Do you remember? Okay, we've got open house. That's a source. Expireds, we're going to put that on the list. There's number 2. We have FSBOs, very good. What else? How about, excuse me? Network, there you go. There's number 4. What are we missing? I'm impressed. Farming. Farming is another prospecting source. Now, in addition to those, there's 5 marketing sources. But of the 5 prospecting sources, we're specifically focusing on expired. Out of expired sources, is it new, referral, or repeat business we're trying to generate? New. There we go. So if it was a networking source, it might be referral or repeat. So once we generate these new leads, we're going to convert them. Some sources produce buyers, some produce sellers, some produce both. Very specifically within this source, we're looking for sellers. Okay? And we're going to coach you consistently that the leverage is in the listing relationship. Out of a listing relationship, all 5 marketing sources can come into play. So that's the way, that is the most direct path to an abundant business. So again, an expired source serves that directly. Once we have a relationship, we've converted the lead with a seller, we're going to put them into our client care systems. Out of that, we're going to begin marketing the relationship. There's 5 marketing sources of business. 4 of them are listed here: yard sign, home ad, internet, just listed. And you can write in on your manual, just sold, because it should be there. If you have a relationship with a seller and you sell that property, you can implement the 5th marketing source. So out of all real estate business can be traced to these 10 sources, the 5 prospecting, 5 marketing sources. By accessing expireds, working this system, you get 1 prospecting source and all 5 marketing sources. So again, a tremendous source of business. Out of marketing this relationship, new leads are going to be generated, and the cycle of abundance continues. That is the operational model of an abundant agent. Okay, so that's just set the context. Now, the strategy that we're going to teach is the call to close method. There's lots of strategies out there for working expired sellers, but we have one that's very specific that is taught in your manual, and it's the call to close. By the way, what do you think we're closing to? We're calling, as opposed to what? Door knocking or letter writing. Those are ways of outreach, but this is a call strategy. But what are we calling to close to? Very good. We're closing to the appointment. That's right. We're not closing to the title company settlement process. Okay. We're not even closing to getting the listing, because we're not trying to take a listing over the phone, are we? We're just trying to close to a face-to-face conversation. So a call to close to a conversation. Related classes: listing conversion, pricing boot camp, and marketing boot camp. So once you get face-to-face with a seller, what happens in that moment? We don't talk about that in this class. That's the listing conversion class. So in that conversation around the table with the seller, you're going to have to demonstrate a deep knowledge of pricing strategy. We don't cover that in this class. That's in pricing boot camp. And when you put your sellers into your client care system, which is short-term and longer-term follow-up, that's taught in the marketing boot camp. So these are classes that are showing up on our office training calendar. You'll need to take them to fully implement this strategy. So what we're going to teach in this class is very narrowly focused: how to get the appointment. That's it. This is the call to close method, close to the face-to-face conversation. Okay? Any questions about this? Again, we're just setting the context, because we're going to get into the weeds here in a couple minutes. And I want you to have the big picture so you don't get lost. All right? Okay, so here we go. The financial consequences. This is always the funnest part of any proactive lead source discussion. You'll see here that the financial consequences of working an expired strategy are broken into 3 columns representing 3 different phases of mastery of this source. Phase 1 calls for consistency. In phase 1, that means you're new to this strategy. You've not implemented it before, so we don't have great expectations for results. We're simply asking that you bring commitment and consistency in your effort. If you do that, in this case, in our example, 45 weeks a year, and you would only work in a source 45 weeks a year if it is a primary source of business, and you should only work expireds if it is a primary source of business. And what I mean by that is you're committing to it. Out of the 5 prospecting, 5 marketing sources, you've identified where you're going to zero in, where you're going to land, where you're going to fly your flag. And if it's going to be expired, you're going to have to commit to it because, frankly, expireds are the most brutal of all the prospecting sources. There's just a little truth in advertising here, a little full disclosure, because you will face more rejection reaching out to expired sellers than anywhere else. So you have to bring commitment to it and say, doggone it, I'm going to work it. And I'm going to hang in there and I'm going to do it. So we're saying 45 weeks a year, 50 dials per week. So if you're working 5 days a week, that's 10 dials per day, okay, in this source. And that's the level of consistency it takes to master this source. Total dials over the course of a year, that would be 2,250. Response rate of 15%. What we mean by that is, of the times that you dial, you're only going to get somebody on the other end to answer the phone 15% of the time. Part of that is it's difficult, even before that stage, it's difficult to get good numbers, good phone numbers. But even when you have good numbers, it's hard to get people to answer the phone. So you're going to be leaving a lot of voicemails. Voicemails are part of the strategy. So 15% response rate. Total talks over the course of a year, 338. A set rate, meaning when you talk to 338, what percentage of the time are you actually going to close them to a face-to-face meeting? We're saying only 7.5% of the time. 1 out of 15 conversations. Would you agree with me that's a very conservative number? You should be able to close more than 1 out of 15 if you commit to the source. But initially, we're being very conservative. Total sets for the year, 25. We're going to say 30% of those are going to cancel or no-show, meaning if you meet at the office, they don't show up. If you go to their home, they don't answer the door 30% of the time. So total actual meetings, 18. We're saying you'll convert 50% of those to an actual listing. So you'll get half of them that you meet with face-to-face. Total listings for the year, you're going to sell half of them, 50% sale rate. How do you feel about that? That's pretty poor, isn't it? Again, we're being extremely conservative with the numbers. That means your total sold, in just initially committing to this source, would be 5 for the year. Now, I want you to take your pencil, write in your average GCI. Your average gross commission income per transaction might be $4,000, $6,000, $7,000, whatever your number is. Multiply that by 5 and then put your total income in the bottom box. That could be your anticipated, expected return from working this source as a newbie, just beginning. Now, the second and third columns reflect a path to mastery. The center column at efficient stage, you have the same input. You're still just doing this 45 weeks a year, still just 50 dials a week, 10 dials a day, but your conversion rates are getting better. The set rate of appointments is not 1 out of 15 now, but it's about 1 out of 8 or 9. Your cancellation rate is lower because you're stronger in setting the appointment. Your conversion rate in the face-to-face conversation is higher. Your sales percentage of the actual listings you take has gone up to 2/3 from half. So the net result, without any more input on the front end, 16 closings. So go ahead and put in your average GCI again. Multiply it by 16. And get your total income at an efficient stage of business. Now let me explain a little bit in terms of timeline here. If you committed to this, if you started today, started making 10 dials a day, and you approached every dial, we're going to teach you how to do this with a specific intent to get better, and you evaluate each call. What could I have done better? What would have made it a 10? What would have made it a 10 plus? What script should I have used? How should that script have come out of my mouth? A specific intent to get better. You can be at efficient stage within 90 days. So this doesn't have to be a 5-year process. And if you stay in it, you can be at proficiency stage within a year. And at proficiency stage is when this becomes a cash cow source of business. Again, with the exact same number of weeks and dials, but higher conversion rates 47 closings out of this source, almost one a week, or actually more than one a week for the weeks that you're working. So go ahead and put in your average GCI, multiply it by 47, and get the total income expected from the source. Is that last number an attractive number to you? It'll work. Keep in mind, this is just one prospecting source. You've got 5, and you've got 5 marketing sources. But could you make a good living if you just committed to this source and said, this is it, this is what I'm going to do, this is where I'm going to fly my flag? Could you do it with expireds, based upon the numbers that you just put on your page? Let me tell you this. The guy who developed this material, David Scott, owned a real estate office in Northwest Houston where he developed and taught this material. He had the National Rookie of the Year 2 years in a row using these strategies. And the best rookie performance he ever had was a lady brand new to the industry. She came in, she got exposed to the operational model, and she said, expireds, that's it. That's where I'm going. I'm not going to worry about anything else. I'm not going to do networking, farming, FSBOs, nothing. I'm going to be the expired queen. $212,000 in GCI in her first 12 months. Okay? And then on from there. But in her first 12 months, $212,000. I know an agent, a RE/MAX agent in Austin right now, who is getting wealthy implementing this strategy. He is well past $212 on an annual basis working expireds. Okay? This can be an extremely lucrative source of business. And the reason I'm stressing this right now, and I realize I'm kind of, harping on it just a little bit, is because expireds are a brutal source. And you have to be mentally tough to implement this strategy that we're going to teach you. But the rewards are abundant. So just understand that. I mean, everything, there's a risk-reward ratio for every prospecting source. This is high risk in terms, or we should probably say high rejection, but high reward. In fact, let me just encourage you right up front, do a little self-analysis. What type of agent should implement an expired strategy? What type of agent should adopt the call to close strategy? An agent who is into immediate gratification. You want results now. If you're a longer term perspective agent, then I might recommend geographic farming or even building your network. But if you're like, I want to make $50,000 in the next 90 days, I want to make $100,000 in the next 9 months, I'm going to say, let's go to expireds. Because you can get on the phone this morning and have an appointment tonight. Even at these low conversion rates, even at phase 1. Now you would have to make more than 10 dials, right, to get an appointment tonight at these conversion rates. But who says that you only have to put 30 minutes in on this? That's what it'll take to make 10 dials. You could do it for an hour, you could do it for an hour and a half, and you could have an appointment tonight. So if you're into immediate gratification, you've got thick skin, you don't take rejection personally, you recognize they're rejecting the role that they perceive me to be playing, they're not rejecting me as a person, I can handle that and move on. Great source of business. Okay? All right, so let's keep rolling. With every prospecting source we teach you, we're going to give you the know, do, have, a focusing tool so you don't get overwhelmed, but you know exactly what you need to know and have to do this system. So again, our prospecting source is expired listings. The specific strategy we're implementing is the call to close method. This is our do, call to close. So what do we need to know to do that? Here, opening dialogue, closing dialogue, comeback dialogue, power phrases, and conversational dialogue. What do all those things have in common? They're all conversational, aren't they? I mean, everything you have to know here is a script or a dialogue. And you're going to hear me say this a lot if you haven't already. The most powerful tool available to any agent is their tongue. What separates average agents from abundant agents is their mastery of dialogue. That doesn't happen by accident. But you interview any top producing agent, you throw any situation, any objection at them that might come from a potential buyer or seller, and they'll have dialogue to respond to that. Okay? It will be internalized. It will come forth with confidence. It is dialogues which separates top producers from the rest of the pack. So you've got to know dialogue. All of this is in your manual. We're going to work through all of it. Okay? What do you have to have? A call list. You got to have a list of expired sellers, and we'll talk about sources for that. You got to have a tracking sheet. We provide that. It's in your manual, and a pre-listing questionnaire. So when you get them on the phone and they agree to meet with you, you can go into that meeting prepared. So we'll give you a list of the questions you need to ask while you have them on the phone. Okay? So what do we call this of the expired listing plan? This is the what? The know, do, have. See, if y'all don't say it, I'm going to have to say it again. This is the know, do, have. I want you to internalize that language, because as you plug into our development program, this is going to be a key aspect, the know, do, have of every strategy. Okay? All right, here we go. So why call an expired? Why would you consider this source? Because 90% of all expired listings still have a desire to sell their home. Okay? It didn't expire because they decided they didn't want to sell. They changed their mind. That 90% still have a desire to sell, making them prime candidates to self-discover and appreciate your unique value proposition. So, key question, why do expired sellers seem so irritated when you call them? Okay, here's why. Because they were in a 6-month unproductive relationship with an agent. An agent is in quotation marks because we're going to differentiate a typical agent from what we term a consultant. An agent who takes a consulting approach with an expired seller. So just put yourself in their shoes for a moment. An expired seller, let's like the old Indian said, walk a mile in their moccasins. If you were promised reality on the front end, and what's reality for a seller? Sitting down with an agent who's taking their listing. What's that agent promising them? We're going to sell the house. You were promised reality. Wouldn't you be a little irritated after discovering it was nothing more than an illusion on the back end? The agent said, I can get you 180. Let's list it at 180. And guess what? It's exposed to the market for 6 months. 25,000 other realtors had the opportunity to bring their buyers to that home and sell them, and not one single taker. So they were misled. They were promised reality. They were given illusion. So look at the typical journey that the relationship between an agent and a seller takes when it expires. The first week a listing goes on the market, there's a lot of showing activity, right? It just pops up, meets buyer's criteria, agents take them out. Agent is in flow. They're saying, hey, we got another one tomorrow. Can you be out at 5? Client's emotions are excited. They're going to sell their house. That's what they want to do. 1 month in, showing activity is slowing. The agent's still talking, though, still hoping this is going to sell. The client, though, is feeling rejected because they're 30 days in. They've had 10 showings and no offers. 3 months in, showing activity is almost dried up. The agent is lying low. They are not reaching out to the seller, perhaps except by email, and the client is depressed. But this was a 6-month contract. So after 6 months, there's no showing activity. The agent is nowhere to be found, and the client at this point has progressed through the stages of grief, and now they're angry. Okay? They are mad because they have been misled. They were told this is a saleable price, and they were misled. So by the time you reach an expired, they're angry and hate all real estate agents. They perceive you to be the same as the person who took that listing to begin with. Remember, your goal is to get from the phone to the house so they can test drive your value proposition and self-discover you as someone different. You're not the agent who took that listing. You take a consulting approach, and you are not going to enter into a listing relationship with them except on a win-win basis. Win-win means the seller's needs are satisfied and your needs are satisfied. By the way, when does that happen? When are both needs satisfied? When the home sells and closes. That's right. So you're not going to enter into a relationship based on illusion, okay? You're only going to enter into a relationship with realistic sellers who are appropriately pricing the home, okay? So that you can get to win-win. All right, so let's get to the call strategy, because this is the call to close method. Your role and goal is to add value. That in every communication that you have with the seller, you're attempting to add value, to help them. The only purpose of the call is to move the sellers from the phone to a meeting. Okay? Don't sell yourself. Don't try to take the listing over the phone. It's not about presenting. It's about calling so you can efficiently open the door to as many relationships as possible. Okay? To get face to face. The rationale behind all expired calls is the same. Let's just sit down and talk to see if I'm a viable option for you. Let's just sit down and talk and see if a win-win relationship can be developed. Let's just sit down and talk and see if we speak the same language, okay? So we're not promising blue sky on the phone. We're just offering to get together, inviting them to a conversation, okay? Key point, you should be willing to call because you truly believe you have the capabilities of adding value. And if you're hesitant to call expired strategies, you need to look expired sellers, look inside. Is it because I don't really believe I can add value? Okay, is that why I'm scared to call? If I really believe I can add value, then I almost have a moral obligation to call, don't I? By the way, let's pause here and have just a brief discussion about why homes sell. Okay? What are the two factors that determine whether a home will sell? Now we can talk about it. I'm not saying you're right and wrong. I have an opinion, but I'd love to hear what. Condition, location, price, marketing. We could make a long list, couldn't we? Okay, school district, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to say all of those things feed into two fundamental factors: price and exposure. Location is a function of price. It's going to lead us to an appropriate price. Condition of the property is going to lead us to the appropriate price. Price it rules over all of those issues. Because I can take a home in a terrible location in rundown condition and sell it tonight. Is that right? How could I do that? Tonight. If I price it right. If I price it appropriately for its location and condition, it will sell. In fact, I can price it where I'll buy it tonight, right? I'll buy it before I walk out with the listing agreement if it's priced appropriately. So price is a key factor. The other is exposure. Are the vast majority of buyers in this market aware that the home is for sale? And at what price? And what is the primary tool of exposure in our business? MLS. So you have to think about this with expired sellers. Was their home properly exposed? Yeah, was it on the MLS? If it was, then it met 90% of the exposure test. And I'm not saying that more couldn't have been done. I mean, if it had been a RE/MAX listing, it would have been on RE/MAX.com, right? There's a little more exposure. We could have put a virtual tour with it or a video with it in addition to those 6 yucky photographs or 7 that they uploaded to the MLS. So we could have enhanced exposure, but if it's on the MLS, it meets 90% of the exposure test. So, why didn't the home sell? If the two fundamental issues that determine whether or not homes sell are exposure and price, and it was properly exposed because it was on the MLS, what has to be the issue? It was not priced properly. You've got to wrap your head around that. That's why this home did not sell.
So we can wrap our heads the other agent probably wrapped their head around it. How the heck did you get the seller to?
Yeah, I'm going to say the other agent did not wrap their head around it, or if they did understand proper pricing, they willingly entered into a win-lose relationship. And to me, that's unethical. The agent was looking for a win, right? They're going to put a sign in the yard knowing the home's not going to sell, but they're going to generate some buyer calls and a little bit of exposure in the marketplace. A win for the agent, a lose for the client. So how do we get them realistic? Okay, come back for the listing conversion class. That's where we have an in-depth pricing discussion, and then we go advanced dialogue in the pricing boot camp. To be an abundant agent, you have to master pricing. Understand price and be able to communicate price in a way that sellers will understand and accept. A seller does not benefit from overpricing their house. Okay? The agent can get some residual benefits. The seller never benefits. So you have to be a master of communication. That's why we've got a specific class just around pricing, but it's also heavily in the listing conversion class. Okay? All right. So, look with me at the bottom box. For better results, working this strategy, you have to become a mad prospector. You got to be a little bit crazy to do this. Okay? What does that mean? First of all, mentally tough. And let's just pause right there for a minute. When we say mentally tough, you have to have an understanding that when you're talking with an expired seller who's angry, they're not angry at you personally, are they? I mean, you didn't mislead them. You weren't the listing agent. They are angry at the role they perceive you to be playing, which is typical agent. They perceive you to be just like the agent who misled them. So they're angry at a role they perceive you to be playing. They're not angry at you personally. So you've got to get that mindset so you can let that roll off of you so you can hang in long enough with them to actually help them. I can't tell you the number of times I have been face-to-face with clients, typically in a first meeting, where they have just exploded at me. I remember one in particular. I was new in this role in Florida with RE/MAX. And this gentleman, I mean, the first 10 minutes was in my face using cuss words I'd never heard before. All the ones I'd heard and some I hadn't, okay? All directed at me. Why didn't I take that personally?
You weren't the agent.
He'd never seen me before. He'd never met me before. How could I have been the cause of that anger? I knew that walking in. That he wasn't angry at me, he was angry with his past experience with people in that role. That guy and I are good friends to this day. That was about 12 years ago. And it was because I just let it roll right off. Okay, let him get it out. Come on, like a therapist. Okay, is there any more back there? Anything else you want to say? Anything else you're angry about? Just let it all out. Okay? Okay, now let's talk. Okay, so you've got to develop that mindset of mentally tough. Be absolutely committed. And that's why I said, if you choose this source, just block it out. I'm going to do it 45 weeks this year. I'm going to take off a couple weeks for holidays and my birthday and vacations and all of that. But 45 weeks, 5 days a week, at least 10 dials a day, I'm going to do this. And just set that mindset so you don't give up day one when your 5 calls in. Okay? Detach from the outcome. And that just means emotionally neutral. You cannot ride the roller coaster of emotions of the people that you're calling. So whether you get the appointment or whether you don't, whether they're angry or whether they're nice, you just maintain a professional demeanor. Okay, this is what you do. Whether you get the appointment or not this time, you're going to be dialing the next one. Okay? And because you know your numbers, you track them on a daily basis, you review them on a weekly basis, you understand that it takes so many dials to set so many appointments, to have so many conversations, to get so many listings, to have so many closings. And you're just working your process. That's what a professional does, detached from the individual outcome of any call. Okay? So when I tell you to get mad, that's what I'm talking about. Mentally tough, absolutely committed, and detached from the outcome. Okay, so before you actually pick up the phone, we're going to encourage you to get on the expired channel. That means mentally go there. Okay? Understand what you're about to do. Think through it carefully. Rehearse scripts and dialogues. And here's the process we're going to coach you through. Review your mission, vision, and values. Okay? That's critically important when you're calling expired sellers. You have to know why you're doing this. Okay, so think about this for a moment. What kind of industry are we in? Real estate. What kind of industry is that? In terms of categories. It is a sales business. I like that answer. It's primarily it's considered a service industry, right? You know, we service people by selling them, right? Appropriately. But another word for service is help. So when we say we're in a service industry, we're here to help people. And so our mission and our vision should be built around helping buyers and sellers. Okay? That's what should drive us. Now, is there a financial reward for doing that at a high level? Absolutely. And we have structured our activities to output a specific financial requirement. But we get there by helping people. The more people we help, the more financially rewarded we are. So you need to get on channel with, why am I doing this? What's my mission and vision? I'm doing this to help people. And expired sellers are people who desperately need help. So, have any of you actually crafted a mission or vision statement which describes why you're in this business, why you're doing this? Do you all remember my mission? Do anybody have my business card with them? I left all mine in my office. I don't even have one in my pocket. I don't have my wallet. Okay, here we go. I'm going to give you all my business card before we're done again. I'll go grab them for you. Right on the back of the card it says, helping agents. The first word's the most important. Helping agents create the time and money to live an abundant life. That's what I'm about. By the way, do I get paid for that? Yeah, it helps satisfy my financial requirements. But the reason I get up in the morning, what I'm thinking about is, okay, how can I help agents today? How can I help them either create more money in their business, more leads, or more time, more leverage, more time away from the business if that's what they want. So we're all in a service industry.